The U.S. finds itself in the midst of a manufacturing renaissance, spurred by an incredible transformation from energy scarcity to energy abundance. What possibilities and pitfalls await the country in sectors from agriculture to infrastructure to pharmaceuticals, as we seek to leverage this competitive advantage to spur job creation and economic growth? To explore this question, please welcome our distinguished speakers. Mr. Sean McGarvey, President, North America's Building Trades Unions. Dr. Lou Anna K. Simin, President, Michigan State University. Mr. Jeffrey J. Wilcox, Vice President, Engineering, Lockheed Martin Corporation. Ms. Simin Zhou, Vice President, Digital Manufacturing Technologies, Underwriters Laboratories Incorporated. And please welcome back our moderator, Ms. Sara Eisen, the co-anchor of Squawk on the Street on CNBC.
Well, we're all fired up and ready to go.
That's right.
And we don't want to keep you waiting too long for drinks or to hear from Sam, so we'll just get right to it. We've got a great diverse group here of panelists, so I think it would be helpful if everyone sort of just introduces themselves, where they come at this issue, manufacturing and energy, what they do and how it fits into their lives. Sean, why don't you kick it off?
Well, I'm the president of North America's Building Trades, which is an umbrella organization for 15 skilled craft unions in the United States and Canada. Bill Hite, one of my leaders on my board, was here this morning. And to break it down, we do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we're a labor organization that prides itself on being a vendor supplier, the world's most highly skilled, most productive, safest craft workforce. And we support the expansion of the energy industry and the manufacturing industry through this skilled workforce that we can deploy anywhere in the United States at any time to build the capital projects and maintain the infrastructure that's being built.
Luana Simon, Michigan State University president. When I became engaged with the council, it was about the issue of energy and all of the challenges of having enough energy in the United States. And then when you think about Michigan with its manufacturing base and what happened over the period of time to degrade that, as well as quality of life, it became an imperative to really become very interested in that. As a land-grant university, we also have to worry about the intersection of energy, water, and food as the 21st century issue that has not only implications in the United States, as well as around the world for global stability. And so we've approached this both from an issue of being very much a part of Michigan's resurgence and the manufacturing issue and what it does for competitiveness, but also from food and what it can do to stabilize our economy.
Jeff Wilcox, Lockheed Martin. I guess I would take an angle of kind of the role of advanced manufacturing in terms of developing high-performance systems. If you work in aerospace and defense, you tend to work on the edge of the possible, at the edge of the envelope. And so considering what the future of manufacturing is and different technologies, we've talked a lot today about additive manufacturing, wide bandgap semiconductors, all these different technologies will eventually find their way into our products and services. So we kind of view ourselves as stewards of a large ecosystem. We have 29,000 suppliers. And so the question of how is technology changing? How can we best serve our customers and most effectively integrate it? How can we train a workforce, develop a workforce in partnership with universities? Kind of a big concern, or I would say topic, is as all these new technologies are coming to the forefront, what does advanced manufacturing mean to engineering? Design engineers don't come out of college understanding necessarily all they can do with additive manufacturing because it changes so quickly. So that's the angle we take.
My name is Simin Zhou, and I'm with UL. Our company focuses on technology and safety sciences. So we help companies bring safe products to market, from energy efficient products to renewable products. And my specialization is also in additive manufacturing and 3D printing. So we are also focused on a lot of issues with respect to training, validation, infrastructure, and standardization that's necessary to support product development.
I think to start it off, Jeff, maybe if you could speak a little bit about productivity. It's a key theme in the clarion call here from the Competitiveness Council about how we're seeing job growth, we're kind of seeing GDP growth, but we're not seeing the kind of productivity growth. What do you see out there?
Well, the technology is moving so quickly. You know, we're certainly seeing that we're able to do things much more effectively and efficiently with these new technologies. So productivity is improving, but it's a little bit sort of, you know, the dog chasing its tail, in that as the technologies advance, then you have new parts. You have to qualify those new parts and certify them, put them onto systems, and so it sort of bogs down the system a bit, if you will. And then we also have the challenge, again, of working with a labor force as they're trying to get used to these new technologies as well. So I would say we're at the cusp of a significant change in how we do business and how we manufacture, but it is just the cusp because there's so much changing at one time.
Luana, how do you train them to take those jobs that Jeff is looking for?
Well, we have to do it in a very integrated fashion to make sure that we're building what we're calling T-shaped people who have the depth in a particular area, but also have the STEAM aspects of the world, because it will take this innovation, adaptive personality to be able to be the leaders in the 21st century. And so we're actually introducing that as a part of our new neighborhood concept for all freshmen.
What about you, Sean? How do you sort of adapt? We heard earlier today, Bill was talking about how you have to stay on the technology for the unions to stay relevant.
Well,
How do you see it?
You know, we invest combined through our 15 institutions $1 billion a year. We operate 1,600 training centers in the United States. Some of them state of the art, and as the technology evolves, the training centers are changed to evolve with the technology. A lot of what's being done now across a lot of different training centers in the United States is creating clean room environment for advanced manufacturing technologies where they get the actual application of how they're going to do the work in a clean room environment in a training center. So when they hit that job site and are put in a position where they have to be prepared to be productive under that circumstance, they already have the experience and they got it through our training center. So, you know, whether it's nuclear industry, power generation, you name it, we'll work with any owner, any industry, subsector of an industry. If the training is going to give us the opportunities for our contractors and our members go to work, we'll make the investment.
What about 3D printing, Simin? Would fall under that category?
Yeah, I think there's tremendous opportunities to create more productivity and new jobs. What is really exciting about 3D printing is that it's creating new business models. So a good example would be the shoe industry. Right now, people are designing customized shoes. And that's going to transform. And I think if we can create those jobs and bring those business innovation in the U.S., that's going to have really long-term benefits.
What sort of innovations do you need, Jeff, that you're not getting to make the process more seamless and efficient?
From a technology perspective, you know, largely, again, all of these materials are relatively new. All of these processes are relatively new. And so qualification, you know, our customers take our products into harm's way, and so everything has to work. And so innovation in terms of product qualification and certification is probably top of the list for additive, especially additive metals, because it's just such a new field, and there's really no standards yet, as we were talking about earlier.
Did you want to say, Luana?
Well, I was going to say, I think the other piece is how universities and industry work more closely together on the research agenda. It's always been part of the clarion call for the Council for Competitiveness. And it's a worry we have with respect to the trajectory of research funding, but it's also engaging undergraduates not simply in starting a company, but starting a company around cutting edge pieces of technology that will give them experience to be the entrepreneurs within the corporations that are very large, like Lockheed.
Wonder about policy innovation, or at least intervention here, how that could further promote, Sean, these kind of technologies, productivities, ways to be more competitive in manufacturing.
You know, we're a huge supporter of something that's not really in vogue now. It was for a little while. Title 17 loan guarantee program of the 2005 Energy Act. It cuts across 10 different technologies that, you know, we haven't really scraped the surface of where they're going, and it just gives a backstop and some surety and predictability when they go out to raise private capital in these technologies, that, you know, they're going to be able to recoup their money with the federal government standing behind it. We had one horrendous experience that got politicized up the street, and I can remember the president standing you know, in a news conference when he got hit with the question, and he said, "I won't cede the future to China. We will continue to invest in new technologies, and we're not going to hit all home runs. We're going to have some failures, but we're going to continue to do it." If you actually watch the bureaucracy work in this town, that isn't what's happened since that. Everybody's gun shy. This is I got you. Who got it? They're getting called up before a committee. Who made the decision? Who did this? So I think that, you know, stepping back and using programs like that can really advance the innovation and technology that's out there if it has the proper public support.
How do we do that, Simin? I mean, you operate in, what did you say, more than 30 countries around the globe?
Yeah, we operate in over 30 countries, and we help companies and governments really understand the technologies and the challenges. And I think a lot of times to bring a product market, it's by bringing together the supply chain and making sure ultimately that there are working business models and drives value for the consumer.
What are you looking at, Luana, in terms of sort of the policy debate? I mean, there's so much out there on the to-do list, and yet nothing gets done.
Well, I think the new report that was issued this morning really speaks very strongly to ways in which we can better close the gap on new technologies. The valley of death question is real. It's true in energy, alternative energy. It's true in other things. So how can we take that report, for example, and rather than talking about it for a very long period of time, begin to implement the public-private partnership that's a part of that, as well as thinking through, as we've talked about today, the ways in which we interact internationally. It's a little bit harder for universities to have the same kind of constraints that companies have in trying to protect intellectual property as we work in an international marketplace. And the Chinese 100,000 Scholars Program is really attracting many, many university faculty members from U.S. universities. So how do we think through the policy issues that better protect intellectual property at the same time doing international exchanges? And it's going to be a big issue.
Yep.
How do you?
Well, I think we have to be able to think about not the extremes of enforcement, but where's the middle ground in terms of collaboration and work, and how can we be very selective in choosing our partners in order that we maximize the probability of a genuine intellectual exchange.
Sorry, Jeff, you were.
I was just going to add on the one grade that the council actually gave an A for was the public-private partnerships, the NNMIs. And from our perspective, they've been a very effective forum to bring together people. So we're with Michigan State, for example, on the Metals Institute. And so it's been a place where we can come together and talk about these issues in sort of a neutral environment. So I think that's been a policy success from our perspective.
What more are we going to see from it? We're going to see more?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's 4 right now. And so I think there's 2 or 3 more that are being formed.
Possible.
There's a bill right now before Congress called RAMI, which will make them part of law. So I think that's important.
I think it also, we have to sort of think about what constitutes success, because there are some metrics that really drive us apart. And there's not, to use a phrase, there's not a really good assist metric for academic institutions working with business. Because we talk about dollars or our invention or whatever. And the same way as businesses work with universities, there's not that kind of assist metrics that really continues to have us drive together on the pressing issues that will keep us at the forefront.
What role, I want to bring energy into this conversation. It was part of the title of this, but the fact that now we have an energy abundance in this country is a big change. How does that impact your lives and your manufacturing? How do you take advantage of that increased competitiveness?
Yeah, I guess I would say we're not a terribly energy intensive manufacturer, so abundance hasn't really impacted our numbers. So I'm not sure I can speak to abundance per se. It certainly has the nature, as the nature of the different types of energy available changes. We use roughly 30% renewables for our operations, so that's changed how we think about sustainability and how we think about cost. We have a plant in Owego that runs on biomass, and so they use that to generate electricity, and then they also use that steam to heat the plant, so that saves costs. So that's kind of where we see it.
Sean, did you have something else?
I would say that it is so big, so broad, that I don't think most people realize how big it is. And when I talk to groups like this or anybody else, I can say that within a 40-mile radius of where we're sitting right now, there's going to be a gas transfer terminal built for Dominion Power. There's going to be 2 gas turbine plants built down in power plants down in southern Prince George's County in Brandywine, and there's going to be a gas power plant built in Loudoun County, which is another 30 miles from where we're sitting right now. And total investment, private sector investment in those 5 projects is approaching $10 billion. So when you talk about what's going on in the energy industry, this is just within 30, 40 miles of the capital, let alone what's happening in the Gulf Coast, in the Dakotas, in the Balkan Fine, what's about to start happening in Colorado, Utah. I mean, the possibilities for, and somebody mentioned it earlier in their conversation, this is the next big thing for the United States. This is the next thing to propel, in my opinion, to propel our economy to maintain its lead worldwide, is our natural energy resources and finds. The question is, can we get out of our own way? And I got to tell you, as somebody that deals on a project-by-project basis in hand-to-hand combat, in a lot of cases, to get projects off the drawing board, funded, and into the ground and operating, it's a difficult proposition. And I think if we blow this opportunity, we'll have blown a whole generation's opportunity for the economy of the United States. But it's unbelievable how big it is.
If not 2 generations.
Oh.
I think that so as reflecting, back again on the council's work, we need to make sure that we use this moment not only to take full advantage of building the right infrastructure, the jobs, the technology, but also that we don't fall back into the complacency. That if you read that energy report, we've gone through cycles of crisis. Crisis has said, let's pay attention to energy, let's invest in alternatives, let's do lots of things. And then there's a tendency to breathe a big sigh of relief and not really pursue those alternative measures in ways that are really important for society to sustain its preeminence and to keep the research functions and everything else alive. So I think that it's a great time for us to fully exploit this. At the same time, we need to build a sense of a public responsibility around the stewardship of this asset for economic competitiveness.
Simin, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think the energy abundance does help dramatically. The question is, what manufacturing can we produce in the U.S. that we don't do today? And I think we need to invest and focus on areas that's truly going to advance us. Additive is just one area. There's many others that I think we need to invest as a nation.
And labor. I mean, it's a topic we've sort of all hit on a little bit, but in terms of the skills, the mismatch, where the jobs are. I mean, what's your sense of it, Jeff? How out of whack is it? Where is the supply and demand equation for labor?
I'm not sure if I'd call it out of whack. I think I would say that that the speed of change has ramped up to the point that we have to work much more closely with those universities, community colleges, and high schools in some cases that are producing our workforce. But it's really incumbent on us these days in ways that it almost never was before, because things are changing so quickly, to have that effective conversation. And we really do talk different languages to some extent in academia and industry. And that's a challenge that you have to work through.
What do you mean? Give us an example.
Well, I mean, it's important for us, it's a responsibility for us to be able to articulate what it is we need, which sounds like a fairly simple thing, but it can be challenging, and it changes on a regular basis. So, but you also need to work with a lot of different universities. There's no real overarching body that you go to and say, okay, university system, here's what we in industry need. That kind of doesn't exist. So it becomes a case-by-case, very manpower-intensive conversation. So what we do is we structure where our needs are going to be, and we go out and talk to the different universities that we work with. Again, the NNMIs have been really powerful because it gives us a whole different way to have that conversation about what we're going to need. But we certainly do, we have experiences on the shop floor which we need to translate back into the university system in terms of, well, our folks are seeing this, and so we changed how we designed in such and such a way to get that back into a sophomore design engineering class is a challenge. And so I don't have a good answer for that, except forums like this, forums like the NNMIs.
I was going to say, it starts here.
It starts right here.
Right. We've also, I think, the credit to the College of Engineering in starting Spartan Engineering. You've heard about people talking about just freshman design experiences. I think one of the best things, and we've done it with MMIs and other vehicles, is to get industry right there with freshmen and sophomores, and telling them industry's problems that you think they can't solve. And what we found is that by and large, they think enough out of the box that there's a germ of those ideas, but it also helps them and helps us to affect the next stages of the curriculum in more real time because they're right there. And we've been fortunate to have not only MMIs, but some companies sponsoring floors, because now they see it as a way to get talent that knows them without going through the internship piece. It's another stage of that talent pipeline. And then with the faculty engaged in these design experiences, it becomes a very good marriage of those needs, but we just need to do more of it.
Yeah, and
get
if I
it started.
could, the co-op programs, we talked in the hallway, the students can almost become that matching function. The students can become the folks that go back to their teachers and say, well, I spent 6 months at Lockheed Martin, here's what I saw. That can affect curricula that way. So there's actually a role here, I think, for the students through internships and co-ops to be part of the solution.
So who are you, what types of jobs are you looking for, Simin? Where are you hiring?
So we're looking for a lot of technical resources. And I think what's different now is we actually try to build teams, because to produce a product today, it's more than just design or just manufacturing. It's actually design, material understanding, software understanding, production understanding, and actually quite a bit of quality, safety, and logistics understanding. To have that holistic picture, it requires a team and a team working together. So when we're hiring now, we're forming people with different skills, and I actually think that needs to translate into or education programs or training programs, so people come out with the mentality that it is not a one-person function, but it's a holistic function. And with the efficiency of that, we can innovate a lot faster as a nation.
What about you, Sean? Your model is interesting as well, given what everybody else is saying, sort of on the project-by-project basis.
Well, we compete. There's no guarantee for us. Construction is one of the most competitive and cost-competitive businesses, in the country. So we have to be productive. We have to produce so our contractors can stay in business and make money based on the bid that they agreed to build the particular project for. And in turn, it has to have the quality and the safety so that the owner is confident enough to give us an opportunity to build the next one. And that's where our training comes in, the focus on the training, and working with, any technology. I mentioned earlier that, we have a 1,600 training centers, so that means we have thousands of trainers in all the different crafts, and every year there's a train the trainer. Many of them are connected with University of Michigan, Washtenaw Community College. They go up there, they spend 3 weeks in August, okay, and they update their skill sets. The trainers update their skill sets on the new technology upgrades that are coming for application in the field. They then take that skill sets that they learn, take it back to the rank and file, to the journeymen and the apprentices to upgrade their skill sets on the new technology that's coming, which at the end of the day is going to increase productivity and make our contractor that much more efficient and keep us in the game. So the constant evolution of the business. The base skill sets don't change. That's one of the semi-humorous things about the green technology and the green. Well, when it comes to construction industry, the base skill sets, I could take somebody, that's an electrician, pipe fitter, sheet metal worker, HVAC mechanic, okay? He or she already has those basic skill sets. They could be certified green in a day, because you're talking about, these applications, these tests. Well, that's the work that they do. The evolution hasn't happened with working with your hands. The material and the equipment, it's a certification body, it's some different application that comes with that. And again, our training centers are set up to do that, to meet the needs of the industry as they evolve. But staying up on the latest evolution in technology for application, which again, at the end of the day, is about productivity. If you look at the amount of people it takes to build, we're building a nuclear power plant right now for a Southern company in a plant Vogel in Waynesboro, Georgia. And I can tell you that we'll use half the manpower building that facility, units 3 and 4, as we did 25 years ago building units 1 and 2. Why? Most of it's advancement in technology. The skill sets haven't changed, the technology and the applications changed.
But Luann, I wonder what percentage of your graduates, they want to go into technology, but do they want to go into manufacturing? Do they want to be building nuclear plants?
Well, if you think about the history of Michigan, about 75% of our students come from Michigan. They've grown up making things. They value making things. And in that sense, it's a rich, I think, environment for students to want to be a part of that. I think what's happening in the language is that there's sort of a cachet about being an entrepreneur. Like all of a sudden, this is the greatest thing in the world to be an entrepreneur and not make things. And I think with the resurgence of Michigan, we've sort of turned that attitude around a bit, and how critical it is for the economy and for American competitiveness. So I think, and we also then need to give students what we're trying to do with some experiences we're doing now in the residence halls, that same kind of creative space around making things that you have around thinking about the next company. And we're pretty good about IT, we're pretty good about applications, we're pretty good about other kinds of things, but there's not a creative space that we can put a set of students who are not in a class, they're not required to do it, they can just go think about it. And that's one of the places where I think that we can get some help from industry about how can you put around us, either virtually because we can tap into some of your conversations and create that kind of space that people can imagine what they would do with things.
Yeah, if I could just pick up on the whole notion of making things and getting your hands on things is just so critical to the engineering process, certainly. And I think it's human nature. People want to do that. We've certainly moved into app design as a sort of desire, and people want to kind of go into that world. But I think as more and more of this technology gets into the home, we have a 3D printer at home. I'm sure more and more high schools are going to have 3D printers. And then you're starting to see this convergence of information technology with manufacturing technology. And so then it becomes cool to do your own modeling and then take that model, press print, and then actually see that thing come out on your desktop. So that's a creative space where people, I think, can understand the potential to create and make things. But it is critical to the building industry, as you're heading that direction, to make sure young folks have the opportunity to do that.
And it's critical that it's made here in the United States and adds to our economy, which sort of Simin raises the question of where on this global sphere how competitive are we in U.S. manufacturing? Where do we stack up? The U.S. has certainly improved, right?
I think where we really need to put a lot of focus on is areas like healthcare and areas where there's a true leapfrog in advanced manufacturing. It requires a combination of skills, and we absolutely have it in this country. It's having a focused path to allow us to become the leader. I think we have to realize it's a global world out there. It's not just us in the race. Other countries are developing those skill sets too. So I think we have to kind of inspire the passion to let's do that fast and let's do that well.
Anybody else have any thoughts about sort of where, maybe that's not the assumption that we should be a manufacturing leader. Certainly it helps our economy and adds jobs.
I think it's good to be a leader in almost anything.
Yeah.
So as a theory, you may not always be the absolute leader, but if you don't aspire, in a sense, to continue to have a strong strategic position, you tend to slip behind, whether you're a company or a university or a collective economy. And it's hard to, I think we've proven over a period of time that it's not IT or manufacturing, it's both. And now our competitive position is putting those things together. So we need to not be in sacrificing something old just to have something new. And I think America can do that.
What do you think, Joe? I mean, you operate all over the world.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. I mean, this is, it's an exciting time. I think when you put together, I guess first of all I would say it's very important to make things. I was never of the school of thought that it doesn't matter where it's made as long as it's designed here, because you have to make things to understand the design process. It's that iterative loop between I made this and then this is what happened with it, so now I'm going to make it different the next time. And that's why you've seen as manufacturing moved offshore, then those same countries started to want to move research and development, and then supercomputing. You know, it used to be all the supercomputers were here in the U.S. Now half of them are, which is good, but it's every other country understands that competitive ecosystem requires making things, designing things, and doing basic research. We have to keep making things. It's just critical.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, Sean, I mean, are we at some sort of inflection point in manufacturing? I asked Sam earlier this morning if there really was a manufacturing renaissance.
I mean, I believe there is. I mean, if you look, we track capital construction in the United States, and if you look what's projected, what's started, you know, and it's across the country, like I mentioned here, but if you go across the Gulf, particularly in petrochemical manufacturing, if you look, we just closed a deal on $1 billion-some fertilizer plant in Illinois today. Okay, fertilizer plants that haven't been built in the United States in 25 years are being relocated back here. I consider that manufacturing. So I think that it's real. I think that there's still questions about, you know, how long people will hang with these investments, because to take, again, the regulatory process, the NIMBY fights to go from the idea of investing the capital and getting it from that idea to actual operation, get product out the front door, is so long. It takes so much effort that that's the real thing that I see that could curtail it. But you know, I think it's real. I think that, and if I make my editorial comment, I actually watched the National Governors Association meeting on a Saturday. That's how good my life is. Back in February, and they had a panel. Jeffrey Imlet chaired, talking about advanced manufacturing and the lack of folks to take the so-called 300,000 jobs that I'm sure exist out there, that both President and Governor Romney talked about in the campaign, so they must exist. But you know, when we think about it in the labor room, we say, okay, they're looking for somebody with a degree from MIT with machinist skills that they want to pay $13 or $14 an hour. Raise the economics, you'll attract the most talented people in the world to those positions. Now, I don't know what the tipping point is in the economics that makes the enterprise feasible, but I'm telling you that that's one of the problems that we have, and that's one of the ones that we're going to have to deal with at some point.
We just have a few minutes left, but I do want to open it up because I know you've all been eagerly listening. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I had just two questions. You know, you talk about public-private partnership, but I would like to take the word private and put it into two categories. There are large industries and then there are small industries. And it's a very well-established fact that to move those disruptive innovation fast through this prism of various parts of manufacturing, you do need to have small industries. And because they take risk, they are out there like gladiators fighting every day. And those are the movers and the shakers. And I would like to hear the panel's opinion, especially about, because digital manufacturing, what you talked about, or you talk tomorrow about UAVs or whatever it is. These are the people, those are taking the risk. They are the one idea creators. Those are the companies started from garages. And how do those fit in your public-private model? And that's what I would love to hear about that. Thank you.
So I can take a crack at that. So I think the world is changing very, very fast. When we did the study earlier this year, there's 25 online design platforms already, which means design now is a global innovation, not just a local, right? What's interesting now, we also have the ability to produce locally much faster with a lot of the advanced manufacturing capabilities. So what the private public institutes are doing for us is doing a lot of the hard research that's necessary behind materials, around validation techniques, so we can take kind of the hardcore research and bring it to a lot of innovation and make things go a lot faster. So I think that's how, from our perspective, these two areas can work together.
Yeah, if I could, first I would certainly violently agree that, we're a system integrator, and so the power of the system integrator concept is you take advantage of, as I mentioned, 29,000 suppliers. And so the ability to say what's the best of breed, what's the latest technology, and then to integrate it, that's an art and a science that's just critical to what we do. So totally agree in the importance of those enterprises, those small and medium enterprises. With your question about public-private partnerships, what we do, the private aspect, so we invested, take something like, we're a top-tier investor in all 4 NNMIs, and so these are significant investments. And at some place like Youngstown with America Makes, we go in and work side by side with those small companies and start to work through the challenges, like the digital tapestry, for example. It's great for us to have an architecture and have it digitally modeled, but if you run a 40-person machine shop, you don't have the tool, the tech capability, the training, the tools to take that model from us and then implement it and have that conversation. So we use the public-private partnerships to come alongside those small and medium-sized enterprises and learn together to have that discussion. But it's an incredibly important forum for that.
I think it also raises a question about whether or not there's the equivalent of a manufacturing extension service. Because that's an old problem from agriculture that we know we have a model for fixing. And the question is, is there enough talent that we can aggregate in a way, not to send them out and look over the fence post, but virtually, in order to answer questions and do some other things that lets that knowledge be more evenly dispersed across the country.
I think, we have one final.
Yeah. Oops.
Thank you. That was a great panel. I think of 2 things that impact this. One is obviously our tax rate, which thanks to Japan now is the highest in the world. Thank you, Japan. And things like the 2.3% tax on medical device revenue. That's almost inconceivable in today's world to do something like that. These are really negative things if you're in the venture business. But another thing I worry about is, assuming someday we'll fix those kinds of problems and the regulatory problems that slow us down, is that I looked up, we mentioned, for example, the growth of textiles back in America again. So I looked up the number of jobs in textiles. It's still going down. So we're becoming much more productive, but we're not creating the number of jobs that we'd like to have. I wonder how you folks feel about, and if we don't create enough jobs in the future, and 3D printing and all these things are going to keep on eliminating jobs, that creates another huge barrier for America's competitiveness ultimately, if we can't create enough high-quality jobs. How do you folks feel about that?
I guess I would certainly agree. I mean, it's critical. I would say, there's always this discussion about, are you creating value or you're creating jobs? Because you may not be doing both at the same time. And that's an important conversation to have. I don't know any alternative to creating value. I think the answer is, not to kind of stick your head in the sand. But yeah, I mean, it's vocation and jobs and the ability to contribute to the fabric, the American fabric is just critical. So it's incumbent on all of us in industry and academia and the labor force to keep trying to grow those good jobs. And I think historically, if you look at waves of technology, that has happened. It has followed. It doesn't happen right away, but it does happen, and it does have a significant multiplier effect throughout the rest of the economy. So you just keep plugging away.
If you look at the economic data, part of our success was fueled by a higher participation rate, particularly of women. That participation rate is actually declining now. You have the structural unemployment parts of our society and the underemployment. All of those together are sort of dragging the economy down in general. So the question is, what's going to cut the Gordian knot? I think part of it would be argue, are we going to pay for certain things differently in terms of the value of labor along the way, not simply to say that's one of those variables that needs to be looked at as a profit or loss item. How do we think about the reinvigoration of rural America? Secretary Vilsack had a really, I think, important conference about that, because I think we need to get growth from there because they've lost tier 2, 3, and 4 suppliers. So how do we reinvigorate that aspect of America? to make America strong. So there are lots of questions like that that require very careful attention. And I think we have to have that in the way in which it's not either or. It's not profit or this, or get out of some of the old debates about taxes or not taxes. But can we think about a world that's differently constructed of ands?
All right. Well, we'll ponder that question, but we have to leave it there. I know some of us have flights to get to. And thank you very much for the lively discussion. Very relevant.